Welcome to the lecture for Chapter 5 on research. As we begin, I want you to think back to Chapter 1 when we discussed the RACE acronym as one approach to understanding how PR works. RACE stands for Research, Action, Communication, and Evaluation. Today we will discuss Chapter 5, which looks at the first part of the PR campaign, research. Research is the basic groundwork of any PR program. It involves the gathering and interpreting of information, and research is used in every phase of a communications program. Let's begin by outlining some key definitions for the chapter. The first term is research. Research is the controlled, objective, and systematic gathering of information for the purpose of describing and understanding. There are two standards used for research, validity and reliability. Validity is achieved when research measures what it purports to measure. For example, something is valid if it is accurate. If you weigh yourself on one scale and it says you weigh 150 pounds, and then weigh yourself on 12 other scales that all say you weigh 150 pounds, the weight is valid. The second term is reliability. Reliability is achieved when very similar results are obtained when a study is repeated. Example, something is reliable if it is consistent. If you measure a piece of wood with a tape measure, that tape measure should yield the same measure each time the wood is measured. Any kind of assessment must be developed in a way that gives the researcher both valid and reliable information. Studies show that PR departments spend about 3 to 5% on research, but some experts say that number should be closer to 10%. Increasingly, executives are demanding accountability and proven results from PR campaigns. PR professionals as a whole, however, use research in the following ways: to achieve credibility with management, to define audiences and segment publics, to formulate strategy, to test messages, to help management keep in touch, to prevent crises, to monitor the competition, to sway public opinion, to generate publicity, and to measure success. There are 4 major types of research techniques. The first is primary research. Primary research uses new and original information that is generated through a research project and is directed to answer a specific question. The second type of research is secondary research. Secondary research is the analysis of data that was originally collected by someone else. The third is qualitative research, and this is research that relies on interpretation of text to probe attitudes and perceptions, assessing penetration of messages, and testing the clarity and effectiveness of materials. Qualitative research is often subjective. The fourth type is quantitative research, which is the use of scientific sampling methods to find numerical results. Quantitative research is objective. Let's go a little deeper into each of these. We'll begin with secondary research. Secondary research is the analysis of data that was originally collected by someone else. The textbook explains 3 types of secondary research. The first is archival research, where PR professionals research organizational materials. These can include policy statements, speeches by key executives, past employee newsletters, past PR and marketing reports, marketing statistics, and news clippings. These all can be used to help determine what messages are being sent to internal and external publics, as well as past PR campaign results. The second item in secondary research includes library and online databases. PR professionals use these to access reference books, academic journals, and trade publications. There are about 1,500 databases available to PR practitioners. The amount and variety of articles and information available through these databases allows PR practitioners to be current and knowledgeable about their organization. The third item is the World Wide Web. Home pages, online search engines, specialized search engines, and members-only discussion groups provide forums for PR professionals to find information and discuss current events or trends in the field. The World Wide Web can also allow PR practitioners to analyze what customers or publics are talking about. For example, after the movie Blood Diamond was released, the diamond industry used monitoring software to track the types of searches about the source of diamonds. The World Wide Web allows PR professionals to assess what is on the minds of their publics. The next type of research is qualitative research, which is defined as research that relies on interpretation of text to probe attitudes and perceptions, assess penetration of messages, and test the clarity and effectiveness of materials. The textbook outlines 5 different approaches to qualitative research. The first is content analysis, which is the systemic and objective counting or categorizing of information. In PR, content analysis is usually used to measure how much media coverage a company or news release is getting and what the content of that coverage is. A second approach are interviews, and there are 2 types of interviews the textbook outlines. The first are intercept interviews, also called convenience polls. In these, people are interviewed in public spaces and asked their opinion on something. These are highly unscientific and unreliable, but can give an idea of popular thinking. The second type are purposive interviews. These are more in-depth, and these interviews carefully select interviewees based on their experience, expertise, influence, or leadership in a community. A third type that the textbook outlines are focus groups. Focus groups are an alternative to interviews and are used to help identify attitudes and motivations of certain publics. Focus groups can also be used to formulate or pre-test messages and strategies before launching a full campaign. Focus groups usually consist of 8 to 12 people who represent a key public. A fourth type is copy testing. Sometimes organizations don't communicate effectively because they release material that is written above the educational level of the target public. With copy testing, the materials are reviewed by individuals or small groups who represent the larger public that the materials would be distributed to. Based off of the findings of the copy testing, the material can be approved or edited. And finally, the textbook talks about ethnographic techniques. Ethnography research is based on an observation of a group or an individual. In PR, observing others can provide informal feedback about how often a message is viewed or the attitudes about a product or company. A third type of research is quantitative research. Quantitative research is the use of scientific sampling methods to find numerical results. There has been an increase in demand for research that provides hard numbers to give insight to PR personnel. Scientific sampling, however, is dependent on 2 factors. First, randomness to ensure that the subject pool is not biased, and second, a large number of participants to ensure the results can be generalized to the entire population. Let's begin with random sampling. Random sampling is required for polls and surveys to ensure representation. Results of a poll or survey are invalid if participants don't effectively represent all of the various types of members that can be in a public. The second is sample size. Scientifically accepted surveys poll 1,000 to 1,500 people to get an idea of what the general adult population is thinking. In PR, surveys usually interview a sample size of 250 to 500 people to assess attitudes and perceptions. Fewer numbers of participants means the survey should be interpreted with caution due to a higher margin of error, but the surveys can point out if a corporation needs to act on something. If you choose to create a questionnaire, The textbook offers 5 different things you should consider when creating a questionnaire. First, you should carefully consider your wording. Some questions can be skewed by the wording that is used. There is a difference between asking, "Do you support a jobs plan for the U.S. to reduce the 9% unemployment rate?" and the question, "Do you support a $450 billion plan by the federal government to address unemployment?" The second is you should avoid loaded questions. Don't use questions that use inflammatory language that elicit emotional responses rather than valid reactions. The third is to consider timing and context. Surveys should not be conducted if the organization is in the news or connected to a scandal. Fourth, the questionnaire should avoid the politically correct answer. Instead of posing questions that elicit correct responses, make questionnaires confidential and promise anonymity to those who participate. And finally, questionnaires should give a range of possible answers. Instead of just yes or no answers, create a range of responses that range from a great deal to none at all. Finally, Chapter 5 offers 5 different ways that PR professionals can reach respondents in order to conduct research. These involved mailed questionnaires, telephone surveys, personal interviews, omnibus or piggyback surveys, and web and email surveys. Each of these has its own pros and cons that PR professionals need to be aware of. All of these, however, can be effective ways to conduct research that can be used to prepare, execute, or evaluate PR campaigns. Today we discussed how research serves as the foundational part of a PR campaign. We began by discussing the differences between validity and reliability, how research is used in PR, and the differences in types of research used in secondary research, quantitative research, and qualitative research. We also discussed questionnaire construction and how to reach participants. Thank you for listening to the lecture, and I hope this helps you better understand the important role research has in PR and the various ways it can be done.